All right, welcome back to another episode of the show to get you in the know. I'm here with Jason Watson. We are excited to talk a Saints W. Jameis Winston ate a W with a big fan in the stands at the start of the game. I think that's what set the tone. We just had to get that W, even if we got to eat it. So, first thoughts, initial reactions. How you feeling?
Oh man, it feels great to get back in the win column. It was really nice to see points getting put up on the board also. Obviously, the defense wasn't their best performance, but it was good to see that there was a little bit more consistency between the wide receivers and Derek Carr. Overall, I just feel great. I think it was a really good played game.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I know the biggest thing was, it's no secret that they've had issues with communication routes and things like that. And like you said, just to have those receivers on that same page, which felt like most of the game. The only blunder was that one where, it hit off Olave's helmet, and that was an
Yeah.
easy six. But watching the replay on that, you think about when you're wearing a helmet, you got tunnel vision, and if you're
Mhm.
looking here, you're not. That ball was just it was placed in a great spot,
Oh
but the
yeah.
ball was perfectly out of his vision. There's no way he saw it until it hit him pretty much. Yeah, and as far as the defense goes, they weren't quite clicking on all cylinders like we expected them to, or what we come to expect from them. But the only touchdown in the second half was that one that was just a complete
Oh
scramble.
yeah.
And sometimes to be good, you got to be lucky. And Gardner Minshew, despite his turnover issues, he scored 4 touchdowns last week. He's not some scrub who's sitting on the bench over there. Like
Oh,
he's a
absolutely.
legit guy. So but yeah, man, I'm happy the offense put up 38 points. That feels like a big win. And it didn't seem like a 38 points against like a Patriots team, right? Like the Colts have a legit defense. Like they're a good defensive team. They'd be much better off in the win loss, or much worse off in the win loss record column if it wasn't for their defense. So it's just it's nice to see that kind of go in our favor for a change. And the other big thing is, man, Pelicans undefeated,
They are.
Saints first in the NFC South, Tulane at 21, LSU at 13. I know we're here talking post game Saints, but it's a pretty good weekend
Oh
for
yeah,
Louisiana,
absolutely.
all in all. I know last week we were all kind of like, well, at least Tulane and LSU are still doing good, but happy to see this start off with a lot of positives for a lot of things going on.
Right, right,
And
yeah.
the biggest thing for me last week was, can the Saints kind of carry over what we saw at the end of last week's game, and they did it. I mean, the Saints offense looked like we kind of expected them to look. Big shots to Shaheed, clean, precise route running by Olave, and Michael Thomas being the guy that you need him to be, and the guy that we know he is. Jamal Williams getting those 6 yard just automatic, insane runs. And it looked really good. So I'm happy with the offense all around. Any other tidbits from the offense that you saw? Maybe not super negative. I don't think there was anything super negative this game, but
No.
maybe not positive. That one or two things that
Uh,
you saw that you still think could be better.
I mean, I think my biggest thing with it was because we were up 35-20, and then I think after the Colts scored, there was kind of, I guess they felt a sense of needing to go out and put more separation between the two, even though it was still an 8-point game, because the Saints were running well through the line, and then they decided to take a couple of deep shots. Obviously, that controversial Taysom Hill pass deep to Shaheed. Was it a catch? Was it an interception? Who won that? But ultimately, it wound up going in the Saints' favor. But I just
Right.
felt like that wasn't necessarily a shot that they had to take. I felt that was a little bit forced. So it's like kind of why are we getting away from what's working right now?
Right. Yeah, I feel like I don't mind Taysom throwing. Actually, I enjoy the idea of Taysom throwing every now and again, purely because you want to keep the defense on their toes, right? If the defense knows they can just send 11 guys, like Taysom's still going to get a couple of yards, but
Oh
if they
yeah,
know they could just send 11 guys, it's not going to be ideal to run that. But I think the Saints did a good job at this season, kind of running these like little 2 to 3 yard passes by him. But I agree when Taysom looks back there were two defenders there, right? Like just throw it away or
Yep.
tuck the ball and run. If Gardner Minshew can get 3 to 4 yards when he tucks the ball and runs, Taysom Hill can too, And I would agree. I think that's the only thing that I can really kind of think about as far as what can we do differently, and there was some conversation this off week or off whatever you want to call it, extended week off, where people talked about Derek Carr kind of being upset and not wanting to come off the field for Taysom, but I really think we probably saw Taysom more this week than we did in prior weeks.
Yeah.
It's probably a combination of Carr kind of showing like, hey, I can be the guy. I lost my cool. I've gotten upset, but I can be the guy. But also, I don't think I'd want a quarterback who wasn't a little bit teed off that I'm not playing.
Absolutely.
And so, like, I get it. Like obviously there's a way to handle that, and I think he's handling it well right now. But yeah, no, I definitely think that's one thing to kind of take note of. Is a lot of people say that Carr doesn't want to come off the field for him and this and that, and so I'm glad to see that this was kind of the week that we hunkered down and
it's
really
a give and take. And I mean, obviously with
Right.
the ego that Derek Carr has, he's a player that does not want to get off the field ever. If he could go out there and play defense every play, I'm sure he would.
Right, exactly. And hey, look, we got a guy, Kalen Saunders, who's showing that you can if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want Derek Carr taking snaps at safety, but it's definitely something to be said about that. But we'll kind of hop into some other stuff here. We got the Panthers getting in the W column, beating the Houston Texans.
First win.
Yeah, it's all it takes, man. They're going to go undefeated now, 11-6. They're going to give us a run for their money. I don't know. I like the idea of Bryce Young in Carolina. It's going to take some years to kind of figure that out for them. But I think if there's a team to kind of do it, they had a lot of success with a multi-talented quarterback in Cam Newton. You just got to try and see if that works for you. Again, if not, Bryce Young may be another younger, casualty of I don't want to necessarily say bad coaching, but maybe scheme fit, right? You have to make a decision. Do you want the scheme you have, or do you want the quarterback you have? And I think the Panthers are going to have to face that. But nonetheless, they did get the win today against the Texans. So that's always nice to see. I know Tampa lost Thursday. Conversations all around the league or all around the Twitter spaces and Reddit and Facebook and the media about this NFC South quarterback race where they're all about 1,600 yards, struggling to get touchdowns. Jumping into that, got the Falcons who benched Desmond Ridder today. Still lost, which I'm happy about, right? But I mean, for a team to head into this week first in the NFC South and bench their quarterback, it feels like if there was a paradise in the NFC South, there's trouble brewing in it, So
yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I admittedly have not watched a lot of Desmond Ridder games. I don't watch a lot of Falcons games until they matter towards the end of the season. But it was nice to see the Falcons lose, give us that chance to tie up the NFC South.
Absolutely.
Again. First in the NFC South. How are you feeling about that, maybe Desmond Ridder situation? Do you think that continues? Do you think it was a knee-jerk reaction?
I feel like it was kind of a in the moment kind of thing, because they know obviously what Desmond Ridder is capable of, and he's led them to 4 wins already this season. So I just kind of feel like they weren't getting what they wanted out of him in that game, but I don't think it's anything that they're going to be having a serious concern with moving forward. It's just kind of get back into practice, get back to work, and be ready for the next one.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's always tough to make that kind of decision. You also wonder how the quarterback responds to it, right? Because Derek Carr, I don't think there was any, serious conversation about him getting benched at all, period. Along with Olave as well. There was, fans reacting, saying like, we need to make a change. We need to do this. We need to do that. And I definitely think that, like you said, it feels like an overreaction. You're still first in the NFC South. You're not there if you don't have Desmond Ridder, in my opinion. But you may be higher if you have someone else. Sure, you could make that argument,
Absolutely.
but it's not the guy sitting on the bench, right? Like
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
reason. If we go into this game today here against the Colts with Anthony Richardson, it's a different game. I think at the beginning of the game they said Gardner Minshew has like 8 turnovers since his start. I mean and he had 2 today, I think,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, too.
Yeah, so he's adding to that total. You don't turn the ball over like that, then
I don't know.
you're winning football games. The Saints aren't even turning the ball over on offense; they're just not producing, and they're not winning football games. So to
I
have
mean,
those turnovers is certainly something.
yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, sticking with the we'll move kind of out of the NFC South, sticking with
mhm.
the quarterback position. News around the league. Big win for the Vikings, obviously against the Packers, but Kirk Cousins, he went down with what they see as a non-contact injury, and early reports are fears as a torn Achilles tendon. So already without Justin Jefferson, now Kirk Cousins inevitably down now.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know if you've seen the replay yet, but we've seen it. You could put those two injuries next to each other with the Aaron Rodgers injury, and
Hmm.
um, I mean, to me, it looks identical. You see the pop, you see the overextension. Very, very unfortunate for the just the league in general, man. I know some people. I don't want to say we're celebrating the Aaron Rodgers injury. That's not maybe the right word to use, but I'm a fan of competition. Steel sharpens steel kind of thing. So the fact that it feels this year in general, I don't know if there's been more injuries or just more injuries to notable guys that not to
Yeah,
say anyone's more important than someone else to the league, but it just feels like we've seen a lot of injuries that have kind of hit guys for the season that
absolutely.
people are dropping. Um, and you just the Vikings still wind up winning against the Packers, right? So it's just kind of it feels weird to lose when you win,
Yeah.
for a team like that and their situation. And the Saints, even with Derek Carr, I mean, there's a guy in the league who, he's having a surgery to repair an AC joint. Derek Carr's playing, so you never know when that one injury is going to happen, and keep rolling as far as that goes. You gotta have that next man up and be ready for it at all times. So more non NFC South. We'll hop over to the AFC. The Jaguars, man. Like I just can't. I was a big fan of Doug Peterson. I wanted the Saints to go after him when we were kind of looking for a head coach. He played his college ball in Louisiana. He got his
Hmm.
coaching start in Louisiana. I felt like it made sense as far as not a total rebuild. You're going after a coach who's proven. But yeah, Jaguars win again, man. 6-2. I don't know where that places them in their division or their conference, but it outside of the big names over there in the AFC, it definitely feels like um, the teams over there in the AFC in general are just it feels very top heavy, right? Like you have the Dolphins, you have the Jaguars, you have the
Chiefs.
Chiefs, of course. Like yeah, you got the Bills, you got the Ravens. It feels very very top heavy over there compared to maybe the NFC, where there's probably admittedly one good team, and none of them are in the NFC South as far as that goes. But I think the 2 or 3 teams that are in the NFC South that feel like no brainers are the 49ers, the Eagles, and of course you even have the Lions in there that are kind of sneaky good.
Oh yeah. And
You know.
that's really what the entire NFC kind of seems like, because it feels like, don't want to use the stereotypical phrase, but any given Sunday,
Right.
because the Eagles picked up the win, you spoke on earlier today against the Commanders, 38-31. But the Commanders are a 3-5 team, being keeping up with the Eagles within a one-score game. They're a real competitive 3-5 team. Um, Same to go with the top three in the NFC South. I don't want to say that the Eagles aren't a worthy matchup for anybody, but I feel like if they got into the playoffs, I feel like any of the NFC South teams sitting where they are now could be an interesting matchup for them.
Yeah, and you talk about the Washington Commanders. I'm glad you kind of brought them up. People were hating on their uniforms a little bit today, but they're that all red going on over there doesn't. It's like a color rush that doesn't really look like a color rush. But yeah, I just pulled up their stats because I was going to bring them up as well. They're a team that so it feels like the point differential isn't that bad. It feels like they're losing by a touchdown a game, and they could very well be 5-3 instead of 3-5. So they'll definitely kind of be a team to watch going forward. The downfall is even their wins aren't insanely convincing, right? Like that's kind of like the issue where some of their losses stand out for me. I'm going to run through the schedule. We got the Cardinals 20-16, 4-point win differential there. The Broncos, which everybody knows how they're doing right now, 35-33. And then the Bills lost 3-37. But then you flip it, the Eagles in overtime, you only lose by 3. But then you go to the Bears and you lose by 20. It just feels like they have a young quarterback who hasn't quite figured it out right, and that's what's going on over there. But like you said, any given Sunday, he could figure it out, and they could go on a little streak, and next thing you know, they're another team in the NFC South, or the NFC, not the South. I'm sorry, the NFC in general, that is just kind of much better than it looks like they were going to be at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, checking their conference. I mean, unfortunately for them, they have the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles, so it might not be their year, but they definitely have some pieces going forward as far as that goes. And
the AFC, obviously, those top contenders are there, but now that we're kind of getting into the second half of the season, you start kind of looking at early playoff picture. You could see easily like a 10-9 win team sneaking in as a wild card in the NFC, and they're going to be a formidable matchup in that first round.
Right. No, absolutely. Especially, with the extra week, it feels like, I don't want to say wins are less important, but that extra game really helps a lot of that wild card action to kind of be smoothed out to where you don't have, maybe an 8-8 team getting in there, but a 9-8 team or something like that. So that's definitely going to be interesting going forward. So we'll kind of wrap it up here. I don't know if you have an anytime touchdown score for the remaining slate of games. I can always pull up some odds here, and we'll go over a couple of them. Mine didn't hit earlier, but Patty called Taysom, and that hit, so that was good to see. I expected Juwan to be a little more involved in his first game back, but it feels like just in general, the tight ends didn't get a whole lot of love tonight. But I'm not mad because the offense worked without it, right? So let's see here. I don't know if you want to go with some Halloween options. We have the Las Vegas Raiders have Michael Meyer over there, who he's gotten some profit boosts from a couple of books because of his name. But outside of that, let's see. We are very much so in the pluses. Austin Eckler at minus 160. Sam Laporta at plus 200.
That's a nice one, especially going against the Raiders defense.
No, I agree there. Yeah, Sam Laporta feels like a good one. Let's see who else I like on this list. I don't know if I really like anybody else. It feels crazy that the Chargers defense are at a higher plus than the Detroit defense. But I digress for that one. But yeah, no, I think I'm going to go with Sam Laporta for my anytime touchdown score. And really, even Amon St. Brown is plus 110. So I don't know. Maybe both of those. You want a little parlay action?
Parlay them in.
Yeah, parlay them, man. Anytime touchdown score. If I had to go with first, I kind of like the idea of a Sam Laporta first, but I think if you want a little parlay action, I like both of those guys to get in the end zone today. I know I kind of
obviously looking at the tonight's game, the Sunday night football game between the Chargers and Bears, kind of a underwhelming matchup there, but good little preview for next week with the Bears coming to town in Week 9.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I think the Saints, I don't want to say they struggle with running quarterbacks because a lot of times it feels like we struggle with guys who aren't running quarterbacks, right?
Mm.
It's like the ones who you don't expect to sneak out on you. But I think if we find a way to knock, the Bears early, they may not bounce back. They're 2-5 for a reason this year,
Yeah, especially with Justin Fields trying to come back off of that injury.
Right, exactly. So you're definitely in a position where you can feels like deja vu. Okay, I've said this before, but it feels like we're in a position where we could start to make a little bit of a a push as far as making some distance in this NFC South that is still very, very crowded. The
Oh
Bucks
yeah,
could turn it
absolutely.
around tomorrow and make something work. But you look ahead at the schedule for the Saints. You have the Bears, who not Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry, Justin Fields is coming off that injury, and then you have the Vikings, and then you have the bye, and then you have the Falcons. I feel like you clean up these next 4 weeks as far as
Oh
including the
yeah,
bye, get some
absolutely.
rest. You could look really, really good in the NFC South and the NFC in general.
Hmm.
So we definitely have a chance to put something together. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think earlier in the week I had spoke a little bit on that in the preview article because
Mhm.
you start now in the Colts, which obviously we picked up a win there. You got the Bears next, and then the Vikings, which obviously the Kirk Cousins is a really big blow, which we weren't necessarily expecting for that matchup.
Right.
But that all goes in favor of the Saints, looking more and more favorable for them in these upcoming weeks. So like you're speaking on, it's a really nice opportunity of stretch of games for the Saints.
Absolutely. I know earlier, I don't know if it was on Twitter or if it was on our Discord group, but Marcelo posted that the Saints were like plus 240 to win the NFC South, and that feels like a pretty solid odds right
Oh
now.
yeah,
We'll see. But if they can keep this offense rolling, man, I think we'll be all right. I think the defense will play a much better game than they did today.
yeah.
And they even didn't play bad. A lot of people were like trashing on the run defense, and it's like, man, like there was a couple of big plays, right? But
I think it was just
Jonathan
really
Taylor,
at the start of the game was
right?
Jonathan Taylor. He looked really aggressive. He was running downfield.
Yeah, and Saints were taken bad. And if there's one thing about a Dennis Allen defense that we've seen, whether it be today, tomorrow, next week, last year, a Dennis Allen defense is going to adjust. There, very rarely do teams get to do the same thing against us over and over and over again. So. But I digress. We'll kind of wrap it up there unless you have anything else.
Sure.
Again, this is the show to get you in the know post game for the Saints. Make sure you tune in next week. We'll do a pregame and a post game. Make sure you stay tuned to the YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, and be on the lookout for our post game article and our pregame article next week, brought to you by the one, the only Jason Watson Jr. This is Ethan Meyer signing off. Thank you, and y'all have a good night. Good at.
Appreciate you.